Welcome to Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes. This is a roster update video and our general structure on these. We got our Marquees and unlocks, and we do have a big unlock this week with the Jar Jar Binks event having recently happened. The Marquees, that is going to overlap with our major project progress where we are working towards Balin Skull and GL Ahsoka. Then we are preparing for the next 5v5 in a few days, which means Datacron preparation. Now we've had these Datacrons for a while, but during 3v3 I didn't need to do the gearing. We do need to do it for 5v5. Then our incremental progress towards the raids. Jar Jar is going to be happening there. We're going to be looking at some of those other recent teams that we've been developing. And then just rounding out any other weaknesses that make sense right now. Before we start dropping gear, I do want to give the context of where my horde is at, what we've been preparing for, and where it looks. And right now we are in a pretty good position. Like you can see, for the known quantities, I'm good on Kairos. We have Kairos for everything that I want to do, which means I can feel pretty flexible. What I don't have is signal data, but we are now done farming shards, so I am working on these. And if you've been watching some of those other videos, you can see we used to have red and purple in this zone. Now we're down to blue, which means we're getting pretty close to having some surpluses. Then everything else is really pretty good except for, the circuit boards and these pieces that we grab with raid currency. We're in a pretty good position to start absorbing those future GL Ahsoka requirements as we learn what they are. Because right now this column, this is the Ahsoka requirements, this is a little thin, not too much here. This column here, this had some other things before. What I'm looking at right now is Morgan Elsbeth, Luthen, Saw, Acolyte, and Spirit are currently within this column. But now it means we can work on gearing up our recent unlocks, and we are now done with one of the big projects that has been just kind of over everything and that I've always had been budgeting around, round him up to Relic 5. Now usually I would like to take him to Gear 11, do a little bit of testing then. Not possible with a team like this where you have Relic 5 requirements, and at that point I'm just going to be taking up to Relic 5 so that I can use him for the raid. I don't think there's a lot of reason to do any lower gear testing. I think with characters like this, there's just too much incentive to be prepared to gear them up in advance. So as soon as you unlock them, you can take advantage. As part of the whole process of documenting how much gear and resources I need on these characters so that nothing really surprises me, and that and most importantly, that I'm spending, that I know where to spend my Mark II currency. And I know which gear I should be farming. Because you could say like, yeah, Mark 12 fusion furnaces, you always need those, and it's true, but sometimes you might be needing to get the HoloLens or the stun gun or something else, and if you're just spending gear blindly, that's pretty inefficient use of resources. Now we're going to drop these on. I don't remember which of these Omicrons I want to consider. Let's drop the Zetas right now, and then I got to take a moment to figure out the Amis. I've got plenty of Zetas for this. I'm usually pretty healthy with Zetas. Used to be a little better in the old Grand Arena days. Normally I like to do these incrementally, but I think these uniques are both really good. I'm going to drop those on. The special ability, it seems like it's a pretty good Omicron. Like here, it's dispelling bonus protection that has a lot of value, and it's going to be doing max health damage. That stuff's good, but it's a special ability. Those I like to hold off on until I get a little bit of testing. That's something I'll wait. Now with the marquee characters, with Morgan Elsbeth, this Omicron we're not doing. The way that I felt about it is this should wait until we see Night Mother. I don't think there's enough synergy with the existing characters to do it now, but it's something I am paying attention to. Night Trooper here. This one was a Zeta ability. This is another one that I think we're going to hold off on until we get the full squad. And then we are looking at Paradia. Paradia, pretty easy to gear up character. The Kairos don't happen until higher gear, and he only needs a couple of them. So we'll bring him to Gear 11 right away, and then we will drop on our Omicron, see if we can do a little bit of testing during this 5v5 period. I'll think about that Zeta for a moment, but I do keep all these Omegas for the videos, and the Omegas are basically mandatory on any recent character. Like old characters, you can pick and choose. Like a lot of those basic Omegas are useless unless they're like on an attacker. I've skipped a number of them, but with these recent characters, the Omegas are really good. Not that for late game players, that's a rare resource or anything, but in the early game, if you're looking at building up some of these characters ahead of time, they can be a choice. Now this is a Zeta, it's turn meter removal, it's a bonus turn, it's cooldown reset. I think we'll put it on for testing purposes. And that's about what we can do towards our major project progress. Now we're done with Jar Jar. The Ahsoka requirements are largely unknown. You can check out my video where I speculated on what I think they are going to be. And you can see we have a few of the ones that are known within here, but a lot of these are guesses. You can that reasoning is in that video. And then we have Epic Confrontation with Balin's Skull, where we got Elsbeth. I would assume Night Mother is within there. And that other guy is the Ahsoka requirement. Kind of seem to be splitting up with those kinds of teams. But what we need to tackle right now are our Datacrons. So this is what I currently have. We'll have more by the time the lock-in happens on Monday or Tuesday, whenever that happens for 5v5, which is several days away. So I will have several more of these Datacrons, but there are a few like Stormtrooper Han or the Nihilist Cron where I need to add relics in order to utilize those squads. And this is roughly how I was thinking about those Datacrons. We have a video on that as well where I broke down the quality of these. And what I need here for Nihilus, like Nihilus is fine. What I do need though is I need Darth Scion. That is a relic that I've wanted forever, but it was always a luxury relic. Like relics that are not required for anything or I don't think are critical to a team for me become a luxury, and Traya worked fine with him at gear 12. Now they will be better and I'm glad to finally have an excuse to do it. This is one I've wanted. I love the Sith. So we'll bring him up to relic 3 so that we can do this. I'm actually a little bit concerned about my Bronzium circuit boards. I actually probably don't have enough of this stuff. That is going to limit how much I can do. This is one I want to do though. I think actually before we do more of these, it is more important that we do my raid stuff. Let's do that. Because with the raid, now we're good with Luminara for now. I'll make that better in the future. With Maul, we're fine. Cadme though, this is where I want to do a little bit of work. We got him to Relic 3 last time. Now I want to push him a little further to Relic 5. We're going to get them to Relic 9 as quick as I can. But you can see with these circuit boards, we're pretty low. So if I did any more gearing related to Datacrons, I'd probably not have enough here. So let's take care of this. I'd like to do Padme as well, but we are prioritizing Qui-Gon and Pow because that assault battle shows up. And I think they gave us another time for the next assault battle. I think it's relatively soon. But hopefully September, we can take them up to Relic 9 by then. And maybe Relic 7 will happen relatively soon. But that's good enough there. I think we have enough to do Padme. So let's do this as well. And then actually I think I have a raid payout that's happening in less than 2 hours. So this is a good reminder that I still need to do my raid. So that's our big raid team. Let's just finish off any raid related things right now. I was going to do this stuff in the order of the topics, but while we're here, Jar Jar's fine, Cadme's fine, all that's fine. Kellerin, I'd like to have a 5th, but I don't think that's going to happen right now. Let's shift back to Datacrons. So really the question here is, do I do Stormtrooper Han? Is that, I think we're going to, let's just do it. Before I think about it too much, we're just going to take him. Oh, we don't have enough for Relic 5. We actually can't even do this. Oh, I don't even have enough for Relic 1. Never mind, we're done. I wish I should have double checked that first because, I mean, it's not, the Kairos aren't that important right now. I'm in a good position with Kairos. What it really means is I need to be budgeting my crystals towards purchasing those circuit boards the next time they show up for that good deal. But what I want and still don't have is Nest, that I'm still working on. Bosk, I'm still working on. Gamorrean Guard, I'm still working on. Gamorrean Guard, I don't really think it sounds all that good, but he's already prepared. We may as well consider it. This pending section here, I do actually have the Young Han, Gar Saxon, and Coruscant, but those, even though the Young Han ones is particularly tempting, they are ones that I would have to do additional gearing to other characters to get good usage out of it. Actually, not in the case with Cup. I could technically throw Cup like onto a JMK team or a Padme team or anything else and get good usage out of, but I'm only going to do Cup if he turns out to be a GL Ahsoka requirement. Our final item is dealing with just any weaknesses. Things I want to round out with my roster, pilots where it overlaps. Now with the amount of Kairos that we're spending, we're very unlikely to even consider any of these other characters. Like Cal Kestis would be a really nice one to add. We could do Saw in advance, but that one we are going to hold off on. What I think though is worth doing a little bit of work on is actually the Nightsisters. Now I've been talking a long time. I don't want to take certain characters up to gear 12 up to gear 11, and I'm ecstatic with Morgan Elsbeth's kit that allows me to keep Talzin and Zombie exactly where they are. They are, to me, actively better at low gear. But what we do know now, with Elsbeth, I don't need to really keep Talia here any longer, and taking her up to gear 12 is meaningless for gear these days. So we can take Talia up to gear 12. And now Initiate, I'm considering, is the one character I don't have at gear 11 minimum right now. I mean, most everybody's at gear 12. And I do actually think there is some reason to actually use Initiate. And we might do it for testing until Night Mother shows up, because the ability cut down here gives crit chance up to everyone, and crit chance is really important to Morgan Elsbeth, because once she starts critting, that's how a lot of the other mechanics start happening within her kit. And if you don't get those crits early on, then you're not getting a lot of the functionality that she provides. So I do think Initiate has a little bit of minimal utility, at least while we're testing and until Night Mother shows up. So now that I don't think there's any reason to keep her at low gear, we'll take her to gear 12. This all doesn't matter. This is a super old character using super old gear. We're not going to be accidentally doing anything with Kairos or anything. So gear 12, Nightsister Initiate, finally happened. And we'll take a look at these Omegas. Like, I could technically do some of these, I think maybe at Relics. Some of these might be interesting to consider. Buff immunity is always nice. That one is possible, but you can see what I was saying earlier in the video. Like, some of these older Omegas, just, they're kind of whatever, versus Paradia, who just had Omegas that read like Zetas. Like, that's the kind of difference we're talking about these days. But hopefully my bracket will allow me some opponents where that we can do a little bit of this kind of testing. Although I finished 3-0 the final week of the season, so that probably put me a little bit higher in the bracket, maybe a little tougher. And just to show you, this is the bottom of my roster now. We got Zori, Poe, and Finn. They're all at gear 11 because they take Kairos to get up to gear 12. Zombie and Talzin, I don't want to ever take up any higher. And what I really like about that Morgan Elsbeth team is that now in territory battles, it gives me an actual Nightsister team that I can take up to Relics and participate on that node. And I'm glad I waited. Now, the other element here, these other characters, they're new Marquees, and they will be taken up very soon. So we have 9 characters right now. Pretty soon, someday, we're going to be talking about 2 characters at gear 11. I'm a gun die. We could take him up to gear 12. I was leaving him at gear 11 because I was hoping for some testing, and you know, at this point, there's no reason to do it. Let's just take him up for just to do it. 8 characters left. We'll do the resistance characters at some point, but they're plenty good. I use them in 5v5 at these levels, and they still get holds. They're great. It's a great team. Don't be afraid to use it if you don't have them at higher gear. Series of final changes for Grand Arena and Territory battles. First one is going to be Dr. Aphra. I am going to add for Grand Arena the final Ami here. And this is because this adds consistency to the Jabba counter. Right now it's very RNG dependent, and I'd like to upgrade her utility. Plus with the 000 Datacron right now, there's some value there. And now for Territory battles, I'm going to add Relicate to Mara Jade. That I don't mind doing. That's also going to help out those Star Killer counters. And the final one that I'm going to be taking a look at that I do care a little bit more about is Scion of Django. But in the case of Scion of Django, I don't mind so much doing it because over the long term, I think this is relatively safe. He's a terrible character right now, but he's a Conquest level character, so I can see CG adding some utility or making him a future requirement for a future project or character, whether it be a future GL, a ship, or something. I just find it unlikely that a character of his level will be useless for the duration of the existence of this game. So it's something that I can talk myself into, whereas the rest of the guild or other guildmates, that might be a steeper ask. That's one where we can do double duty and help out my own roster, make some changes, and also insulate myself up against those future changes. We'll wrap up this roster video. We got Luthen coming up next. We got a bunch of marquee characters. We have Ezra with those requirements. I recorded this video a week ago, and now that I've done editing, we've seen a number of changes in game for the next series of roster changes. So check out in probably a week's time when we make those. So thank you for watching. Be excellent to each other, everybody. This is Still Plays Galaxy of Heroes.